The biggest mistake you can make when you like someone is assuming that uncertainty means rejection. Sometimes a man's behavior is quieter than you expect. He may not text you constantly. He may not make some dramatic confession. He may even seem completely composed around you. And yet, you may still be occupying far more space in his mind than you realize. But let me give you an important distinction right at the beginning. I don't want you turning every tiny behavior into proof that a man is secretly obsessed with you. That's not confidence. That's anxiety looking for evidence. What we're looking for are patterns. Because when someone genuinely becomes interested in you, something changes. You begin to appear in their attention, even when you're not physically there. They remember things you said. They notice things about you. They find reasons to reconnect. They become curious about your world. And sometimes, without even realizing it, they start building little bridges back to you. So if you've ever sat there thinking, he probably doesn't even think about me, pay attention, because some of the strongest signs are not the dramatic ones. They're the subtle behaviors that reveal where someone's attention naturally goes. Imagine you meet a man and have one conversation about a place you've always wanted to visit. It's just a passing comment. You don't even remember saying it. A week later, he sends you a message. I saw something about that place today and thought of you. Now, is that absolute proof that he's in love with you? Of course not. But psychologically, something interesting has happened. You became associated with something in his environment. His brain encountered that place and you came to mind. That's what happens when people become emotionally salient to us. Our minds begin connecting them with ordinary experiences. And here's what most people never realize. Attraction isn't only about how someone behaves when they're with you. It's also about what happens in their mind when you're not there. Think about your own experience. When you really like someone, don't ordinary things suddenly remind you of them? A song, a restaurant, a joke, a random phrase, something you see while scrolling. You don't have to consciously decide, I will now think about this person. Your brain does it automatically. The same basic psychological process can happen to him. But this is where I want you to become much more discerning. Don't look for one isolated sign. Look for repeated attention. Does he remember details you've mentioned? Does he bring up conversations from weeks ago? Does he ask about something important in your life without being reminded? Does he notice when your mood changes? Does he create opportunities to talk to you? Does he make plans rather than simply sending random messages? Those behaviors tell you much more than whether he viewed your story within 5 minutes. Because social media can create the illusion of intimacy without actual investment. Someone can like every picture you post and still make no meaningful effort to know you. Another man might rarely interact with your social media, but consistently make time to see you, remember what matters to you, and follow through on what he says. Which one tells you more? Exactly. Behavior that costs something. Time, attention, effort, consistency. Those are the currencies of genuine interest. And this is where everything changes. A man who is genuinely thinking about you may begin finding small reasons to reconnect. Maybe he sends you a joke because it reminds him of something you laughed about together. Maybe he asks how your presentation went because you mentioned being nervous about it. Maybe he sees a movie trailer and remembers that you said you wanted to watch it. These things may look insignificant, but relationships are often built through insignificant moments. A woman once described this perfectly to me. She said, I thought he wasn't interested because he wasn't constantly texting me. Then one day I mentioned that my mother had an important appointment. 2 weeks later, he asked me how it went. She was shocked. She had forgotten she'd even told him. He hadn't. Now, again, don't romanticize every memory. Some people simply have excellent memories. But when remembering you becomes part of a larger pattern of curiosity, effort, and consistency, that's when it becomes meaningful. Because he's not simply hearing you, he's retaining you. And there's a difference. When someone is interested, They often become curious about the world behind your words. You say, "I've had a stressful week." A man who is merely making conversation might say, "Yeah, same." A man who is genuinely engaged might ask, "What happened?" And then he might remember the answer. That second part matters, because emotional attention isn't just asking questions, it's caring enough to remember what the answer was. But here's where I want to challenge you. You may be tempted to think, okay, if he likes me, I need to give him more attention so he thinks about me even more. No. This is where many women accidentally turn attraction into a full-time job. They start calculating responses. How long should I wait? Should I post this? Should I make him jealous? Should I leave him on read? Should I send another message? And suddenly the relationship isn't about connection anymore. It's about strategy. Real confidence doesn't operate like that. If you like him, you can show interest. You can be warm. You can flirt. You can initiate sometimes. But you don't need to engineer his psychology. You don't need to manufacture scarcity. You don't need to disappear just to see if he'll chase you. Instead, allow his natural behavior to give you information. That's much more powerful. Because if you always create the connection, you'll never know whether he would have created it himself. Imagine you text him every time you miss him. You initiate every conversation. You suggest every date. You keep the conversation alive whenever it starts fading. Eventually you might think, wow, we have such a strong connection. But do you? Or have you been carrying it? That's a difficult question, but an important one. Sometimes the best thing you can do is create a little space, not as a manipulation, but as an observation. You stop doing the work that was never yours to do, then you see what happens. Does he notice? Does he reach out? Does he suggest seeing you? Does he continue the connection? Does he move toward you? And whatever happens gives you information. That's healthier than spending weeks trying to decode one ambiguous text. Now, another subtle sign that you may be on his mind is that he starts connecting you to his future experiences. He might say, "You'd love this place," or "We should try that sometime," or "I think you'd really like this movie." Notice what's happening psychologically. He's mentally placing you into future situations. That doesn't necessarily mean he's planning a relationship with you, but it can show that you're becoming part of the mental picture he has of upcoming experiences. And that's interesting because attraction isn't only about wanting someone now. It's also about imagining experiences with them later. But again, actions matter. If he says, "We should go sometime," and never follows through, don't build an entire relationship around the sentence. Watch whether the idea becomes a plan. That's the difference between fantasy and intention. And this brings us to something even deeper. You may be on his mind because you make him feel something. Maybe you make him laugh in a way he doesn't usually laugh. Maybe conversations with you make him feel understood. Maybe he feels more confident around you. Maybe you challenge his thinking. Maybe there's a sense of emotional safety. Human beings tend to remember experiences that carry emotional significance. That's why you can forget what someone wore, but remember exactly how they made you feel. So don't underestimate the power of emotional experience. You don't need to be the most beautiful woman in the room. You don't need to have the perfect text. You don't need to say something clever every 5 minutes. Sometimes what makes someone memorable is simply the quality of the interaction. You listened, you laughed, you were present. You weren't trying desperately to impress. You let him see your personality, and that creates something much more powerful than performance. It creates association. He starts associating you with a particular feeling, and that can make you memorable. But there's another sign I want you to watch for. He notices your absence. This is not about disappearing strategically. It's about observing what happens naturally when you're not constantly available. If you normally talk every day and you become busy with your own life, does he check in? If you don't initiate the next conversation, does he eventually create one? If you've been seeing each other regularly, does he make an effort to see you again? This is important because healthy attraction requires some level of mutual pursuit. You shouldn't have to constantly remind someone that you exist. If your presence matters to him, your absence will eventually create awareness. But please don't misunderstand me. This doesn't mean you should deliberately ignore him for 3 days. It means you should have a life that doesn't collapse when he isn't around. There's a huge difference. One is a game, the other is self-respect. And self-respect is attractive because it communicates something powerful. My life has value with or without your attention. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care without abandoning yourself. And that is one of the most important psychological shifts you can make in dating. Because the moment your self-worth becomes dependent on another person's interest, you become vulnerable to every tiny fluctuation. He replies quickly, "You feel valuable." He replies slowly, "You feel rejected." He likes your post, you feel hopeful. He doesn't, you feel invisible. That's exhausting. And it puts someone else in control of your emotional state. Instead, you want to reach a place where you can say, "I like him. I would love for this to work, but I'm still me if it doesn't." That's confidence. And here's the surprising part. When you stop desperately needing his attention, you become much better at seeing whether he's actually giving it. An anxious mind interprets everything. A grounded mind observes. That's the difference. So let's say he takes 6 hours to reply. The anxious mind says, he's lost interest. The grounded mind says, I don't know why he took 6 hours. I'll look at the overall pattern. Does he consistently communicate? Does he make plans? Does he show curiosity? Does he follow through? That's evidence. One delayed response is not. And if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. Never build a relationship around isolated moments when you could evaluate a pattern. Because one amazing date doesn't prove compatibility. One romantic message doesn't prove commitment. One kiss doesn't prove love. One quiet day doesn't prove rejection. Patterns tell the story. Now let's talk about something that can be even more revealing. Sometimes a man who is thinking about you will start bringing you into conversations with people around him. Maybe he says, I told my friend about that story you mentioned. Or someone in his social circle already knows something about you. Again, this isn't definitive proof of anything, but it can indicate that you've become significant enough to enter his everyday conversations. People naturally talk about things that occupy their attention. If you're repeatedly appearing in his conversations, that's worth noticing. But don't become obsessed with collecting evidence. Because the goal isn't to build a case for why he likes you. The goal is to find out whether the relationship is mutually healthy. That's a much better goal. And now I want you to imagine something. Imagine you never had to ask, does he like me? Imagine his behavior gave you enough information that you could simply enjoy getting to know him. Imagine you weren't analyzing every message because you were watching whether he consistently showed up. Imagine you could receive his attention without needing it to validate you. That's the emotional freedom we're really trying to create. Because the strongest position you can be in isn't, how do I make him think about me non-stop? It's, if he thinks about me, wonderful. If he doesn't, I will still choose a life that makes me proud. And ironically, that's often when your relationships become healthier. You stop chasing certainty. You start allowing people to reveal themselves. You stop asking, what does this text mean? You start asking, what does this pattern tell me? You stop trying to control the outcome. You start paying attention to compatibility. And that's where dating becomes much less stressful. Because you don't need to convince the right person to see your value. You simply need to give them the opportunity to experience it. And then you watch what they do with that experience. And there is another layer to this that I really want you to understand, because this is where women often misread what is happening. A man thinking about you doesn't necessarily mean he's sitting somewhere staring at his phone, wishing you would text him. Sometimes it looks much quieter than that. It can look like curiosity. He wants to know what you're doing. He wants to know how your day went. He remembers something you said and circles back to it. He notices when something changes about you. He asks questions that go beyond surface level conversation. And the reason this matters is because curiosity is one of the foundations of emotional investment. When we're genuinely interested in someone, we don't just want access to them. We want information about them. We want to understand them. We want to know what makes them laugh, what frustrates them, what they're passionate about, what their world looks like when we're not around. So if you're wondering whether you're occupying his mind, don't just ask whether he contacts you. Ask what kind of attention he gives you when he does. There's a huge difference between, hey, what are you doing tonight? And you mentioned your sister was starting a new job. How did that go? The first can be casual. The second demonstrates memory. And memory is powerful because it means your words didn't simply pass through him. They stayed. But here's where I want you to be careful. You don't want to become addicted to being remembered, because sometimes we can turn a healthy desire for connection into a desperate need for proof. You start thinking, if he remembers this detail, he must really like me. Then tomorrow he forgets something and suddenly you think, maybe he's losing interest. Now, that's not a relationship. That's emotional surveillance. You don't need to monitor every fluctuation. You need to observe the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is usually much simpler than your anxious mind makes it. Does he consistently move towards you? Does he make room for you? Does he seem genuinely interested in your life? Does he follow through? Does he treat you with respect? Does he make you feel like you're participating in a connection rather than auditioning for one? That last question is especially important because if you constantly feel like you're auditioning for someone's affection, something is already wrong. You shouldn't feel as though every conversation is an exam you might fail. You shouldn't have to be fun enough, beautiful enough, interesting enough, available enough, mysterious enough. Perfect enough. You are not applying for the position of girlfriend. You're getting to know another human being, and he is getting to know you. That means you're evaluating him too. This is a mindset shift that can completely change your dating life. Instead of thinking, does he like me? Ask, do I like how I feel around him? Instead of, how can I make him choose me? Ask, is he showing me that he is capable of choosing me? Instead of, what can I do to make him think about me? Ask, what does he naturally do when I give him space to show interest? Those questions return your power to you. And this is important because attraction becomes unhealthy when one person becomes the prize and the other becomes the applicant. You don't want to be the applicant. You want reciprocity. You want two people thinking, I hope this person likes me because I like them. That's mutual attraction. Now, there is another sign that can reveal you're on his mind. He starts noticing small changes that other people overlook. Maybe you change your hairstyle. Maybe you're quieter than usual. Maybe you mention that you're tired. Maybe you wear something different. And he says, something seems different today. Again, don't immediately interpret that as love, but it does demonstrate attention. He is observing you, and when someone is paying attention, they often notice details without consciously trying to. Think about someone you're interested in. You probably notice things about them that other people don't. You know how they take their coffee. You recognize their footsteps. You notice when their voice sounds different. You remember the little story they told you months ago. That's because attention follows importance. When someone becomes psychologically significant, your brain gives them more processing power. And that's why genuine interest can be revealed through little details. But there's an even deeper layer. Sometimes he will begin mirroring your energy. If you're playful, he becomes playful. If you're thoughtful, he slows down and becomes more thoughtful. If you get excited about something, he becomes interested in that excitement. Now, mirroring isn't proof of attraction by itself. Human beings naturally adapt to one another during social interaction. But when it appears alongside other signs, curiosity, effort, memory, consistency, it can indicate that he feels comfortable and connected with you. And comfort matters, because real attraction isn't always butterflies and intensity. Sometimes attraction grows through emotional ease. You don't have to constantly perform. You don't have to wonder what to say. You can sit together and have a normal conversation. You can disagree without everything becoming dramatic. You can be yourself, and he can be himself. That kind of emotional safety can become deeply attractive. But many people mistake anxiety for chemistry. They say, I've never felt this strongly about someone. And what they mean is, I've never been this uncertain about whether someone wants me. Those are not the same thing. Anxiety can create intensity. Uncertainty can create obsession, but healthy attraction creates curiosity, warmth, excitement, and increasing trust. That's why I want you to pay attention not only to how much you think about him, but to how you feel after interacting with him. Do you feel grounded? Do you feel respected? Do you feel seen? Or do you feel like you need to decode everything? Your nervous system can sometimes tell you something your romantic fantasy doesn't want to hear. And this is where self-respect becomes essential. If a man genuinely likes you but behaves inconsistently, you don't have to punish him. You don't have to become cold. You don't have to play games. You simply have to become clear about what you need. You can say, I enjoy spending time with you, but consistency matters to me. That's not demanding. That's communication. And his response will tell you something. A healthy person may say, I understand. An incompatible person may become defensive. Someone who isn't ready may disappear. And as painful as that can be, clarity is still valuable because you don't want to spend 6 months trying to extract commitment from someone who has already shown you they can't give it. Now let's return to the title of this conversation. You think he doesn't like you, but this proves you're on his mind nonstop. I want to challenge the word proves. No single behavior can prove what's happening inside another person's mind. Only he knows exactly what he's feeling. What we can observe are patterns that suggest attention, attraction, curiosity, and emotional investment. And that's actually healthier because you don't need certainty about his private thoughts. You need enough evidence from his behavior to decide whether continuing the connection makes sense for you. That's a much more mature form of dating. You're not trying to read his mind, you're watching his choices. And choices are where relationships become real. A man can think you're beautiful. He can think about you. He can miss you. He can fantasize about you. But if he never makes an effort to know you, those feelings aren't creating a relationship. And this distinction will save you from so much heartbreak. Don't ask only, does he desire me? Ask, does he value me? Desire wants. Value invests. Desire says, I want your attention. Value says, I want to understand you. Desire can appear suddenly. Value reveals itself over time. And when you start looking for value, you become much harder to manipulate because someone can't impress you simply by saying the right thing. You begin asking whether their behavior matches their words. And that's where your standards become your protection. Let's imagine another woman. She meets a man who is incredibly charming. Every time they talk, he tells her how amazing she is. He says she's different from every other woman. He tells her he can't stop thinking about her. She feels swept away, but weeks pass. He doesn't make plans. He doesn't follow through. He disappears and returns whenever it suits him. She keeps focusing on the words, but the words aren't building anything. Now imagine another man. He isn't as dramatic. He doesn't send 10 paragraphs at midnight, but he remembers her schedule. He checks whether she got home safely. He plans dates. He listens. He respects her boundaries. He shows up. Which man is demonstrating something more valuable? The second, because healthy attraction isn't measured by how intensely someone can make you feel. It's measured by how consistently they can show up. And this is one of the biggest lessons I want you to take away from this. Intensity is not the same as intention. Someone can create incredible emotional intensity without having the intention to build a relationship. Don't let intensity hypnotize you. Look for intention. Look for movement. Look for consistency. And if you're currently dealing with a man who sends mixed signals, stop trying to solve the puzzle by becoming more attractive. You don't need a better outfit, a better text, a better Instagram post, a better strategy. You need information. And the best way to get information is to stop doing all the work, not as a game, as an experiment in reciprocity. Give him room to participate. If he wants to talk, let him initiate sometimes. If he wants to see you, let him make a plan. If he says he'll call, let him call. And if he doesn't, don't rescue the situation immediately. Let reality speak. Because reality is often kinder than fantasy. Fantasy says, maybe he's just scared. Reality says he hasn't called. Fantasy says, maybe he's testing me. Reality says he hasn't made a plan. Fantasy says, maybe I need to become more mysterious. Reality says, I deserve someone who communicates. You see the difference? One keeps you trapped in interpretation. The other gives you choices. And your goal is not to become better at interpreting someone. Your goal is to become better at choosing. That's confidence. You don't need to know exactly what he thinks. You need to know what you're willing to accept. And when you know that, dating becomes much less frightening because rejection stops meaning I'm not enough. It starts meaning this wasn't mutual. Those are completely different messages. If someone doesn't choose you, it doesn't automatically mean you're undesirable. It may mean they're unavailable. It may mean they're incompatible. It may mean they want something different. It may simply mean the chemistry isn't there, and you don't need to convince someone otherwise. The right connection won't require you to argue your case. So if you suspect you're on his mind, enjoy the possibility. Notice the evidence. But don't lose yourself trying to prove it. Live your life. Be warm, be authentic. Let yourself be interested, but stay connected to your own center. Because when you have your own center, you can receive affection without becoming dependent on it. You can enjoy his message without needing it. You can smile when he calls without making the call responsible for your happiness. You can miss him without chasing him. You can love someone without abandoning yourself. And that's a very different kind of power. It's not the power to control another person's feelings. It's the power to remain whole regardless of what another person chooses. And here's the beautiful irony. When you stop desperately trying to occupy someone's mind, you become far more capable of seeing whether you already do. You stop manufacturing moments. You start noticing natural ones. You stop forcing conversation. You notice whether he creates it. You stop trying to make yourself unforgettable. You notice whether he remembers. You stop asking whether you're enough. You start asking whether the relationship is enough for you. That is the shift. And if he really is thinking about you, let him show you. Let him reach. Let him remember. Let him make plans. Let him ask questions. Let him create opportunities to be close to you. You don't need to pull him toward you every step of the way. A healthy connection has movement from both sides. And if he isn't moving toward you, don't spend your life trying to become more magnetic. Sometimes the most attractive thing you can do is accept the information in front of you, because your life is too valuable to spend analyzing someone who refuses to participate. You deserve a man whose interest doesn't leave you constantly confused. You deserve someone whose affection feels like warmth rather than a test. Someone whose presence gives you peace rather than making you question your worth. Someone who doesn't just think about you when he's lonely, but makes room for you when life is full. And ultimately, that's what I want you to remember. Don't measure your value by how often a man thinks about you. Measure the quality of the relationship he is willing to build with you, because being on someone's mind can feel wonderful, but being treated with care is what matters. Being remembered is beautiful. Being respected is essential. Being desired is exciting. Being valued is transformative. And if you can hold on to that distinction, you'll stop chasing signs and start recognizing substance. You'll stop trying to become the woman he can't stop thinking about. And you'll become the woman who knows she deserves a man who doesn't just think about her. He chooses her. He shows up for her. He communicates with her. He respects her. And he makes his interest clear through the one thing that can never be faked forever: his consistent actions. The most powerful thing you can do when you like a man is not to convince him to choose you. It is to become so grounded in yourself that his choice becomes information, not a verdict on your worth. Because here's what happens when you stop chasing certainty. You start seeing clearly. You notice when he reaches out because he genuinely wants connection. You notice when he remembers something you said. You notice when he makes an effort without being prompted. You notice when he finds reasons to spend time with you. And you also notice when none of those things are happening. That clarity is incredibly valuable. But there is one final psychological pattern I want you to understand. Sometimes a person thinks about you more when you stop trying to occupy every moment of their attention. Not because you're playing hard to get, not because you're deliberately withholding affection, but because you're allowing natural space for desire and curiosity to exist. Think about music. If a song plays continuously, eventually you stop noticing it. But when you hear a beautiful song and then it ends, your mind may continue playing. Relationships can work similarly. A meaningful conversation doesn't have to continue forever to matter. Sometimes you leave someone with a feeling, an idea, a laugh, or a moment they continue thinking about afterward. And that's why you don't need to fill every silence. You don't need to send another message because the conversation ended. You don't need to create another reason to talk because you're afraid he'll forget you. Let moments breathe. If the connection is real, space won't destroy it. It will reveal it. And that's the distinction I want you to carry with you. You're not trying to create absence so that he chases you. You're creating room so that both people can choose to move toward each other. There is a huge difference. One is manipulation, the other is freedom. And healthy attraction needs freedom. Because if you have to constantly manage someone's attention, you never get to discover whether their attention naturally belongs with you. Now imagine you send him a message and he doesn't reply immediately. Instead of checking your phone every 3 minutes, you continue your day. You go to the gym, you study, you work, you meet a friend, you read, you pursue your goals, and eventually he responds. You don't punish him. You don't deliberately wait exactly 6 hours because he waited 6 hours. You simply respond when you're genuinely available. That's emotional independence. You're not pretending not to care. You're proving to yourself that caring about someone doesn't mean abandoning your own life. And that is a mindset that will serve you far beyond dating. Because your confidence should not disappear every time someone's behavior changes. You should be able to say, I don't know what this means yet. That sentence is incredibly powerful. I don't know yet. Instead of inventing a story, instead of assuming rejection, instead of assuming love, you wait for more information, you observe, you allow reality to unfold. And this is where emotional intelligence becomes more important than dating tricks. Because anyone can memorize 10 texting techniques. Anyone can learn how to appear mysterious. Anyone can post a picture designed to provoke jealousy. But none of that teaches you how to build a healthy relationship. The deeper skill is learning how to regulate yourself when you don't have certainty. Can you tolerate not knowing? Can you let someone reveal themselves? Can you remain warm without becoming needy? Can you remain interested without becoming obsessed? Can you have standards without becoming defensive? That's real confidence. And if you develop that, you become much less vulnerable to mixed signals. Because mixed signals only have enormous power when you feel you must solve them. Sometimes the answer is simply, I don't have enough evidence yet. And that's okay. Let time give you the evidence. A person who is genuinely interested usually becomes easier to understand over time, not harder. Their actions begin forming a pattern. Their words become consistent with their behavior. Their effort becomes predictable. Their presence becomes dependable. You don't need to decode every moment because the overall relationship speaks for itself. And if months pass and you're still desperately asking, does he even like me? That question itself may be telling you something. Not necessarily that he doesn't like you, but perhaps that he isn't communicating his interest in a way that makes you feel secure. And that's worth considering. Because your goal isn't simply to find someone who feels attraction. Your goal is to find someone who can express attraction in a healthy way. Someone can like you and still be wrong for you. That's an uncomfortable truth. A man can think you're beautiful and still be emotionally unavailable. He can miss you and still not be ready for commitment. He can be attracted to you and still not have the capacity to build the relationship you want. So don't make attraction the finish line. It's only the beginning. You want attraction plus consistency, chemistry plus communication, desire plus respect, connection plus compatibility. That's what creates something sustainable. And this is why I want you to stop asking, how do I make him think about me nonstop? Ask a better question. What kind of woman do I want to be in a relationship? Do you want to be the woman constantly checking whether he's online, or the woman living a meaningful life? Do you want to be the woman trying to manufacture jealousy, or the woman who trusts that the right relationship doesn't require emotional games? Do you want to be the woman desperately searching for signs, or the woman confident enough to wait for clear behavior? That choice is yours. And sometimes personal growth begins with realizing that you've been asking the wrong question. You thought the problem was, how do I get him to like me? But the deeper question was, Why do I believe his liking me determines my worth? That's where the real work begins. Because if you believe you're valuable only when someone desires you, no amount of male attention will ever be enough. You'll get the text and want another. You'll get the date and need another. You'll get the compliment and wonder whether he still means it tomorrow. You'll constantly need reassurance. But when your self-worth becomes internal, attention becomes something you enjoy rather than something you require. And there's such freedom in that. You can smile when he texts. You can feel excited when he asks you out. You can enjoy the butterflies. But underneath all of it is a quiet belief. I am already enough. That belief changes the way you date. You don't chase someone who repeatedly disappoints you. You don't beg someone to communicate. You don't compete with another woman for someone's attention. You don't try to convince an emotionally unavailable person to become available. You don't turn yourself into someone you're not just to keep someone interested. You stay yourself and you allow people to choose whether they want to meet you there. That's not passive. That's powerful because you're not sitting around waiting for love. You're actively choosing what kind of love deserves access to you. And if you're watching this because there's one particular man on your mind right now, I want you to take a breath. Don't send him another message simply because you're anxious. Don't post something hoping he'll react. Don't create a fake reason to contact him. Instead, ask yourself 3 simple questions. Has he shown genuine curiosity about me? Has he made consistent effort to move the connection forward? And most importantly, do I feel respected and emotionally safe around him? If the answer is yes, allow the relationship to develop. If the answer is no, don't compensate by trying harder. That is where so many people lose themselves. They see a lack of effort and respond with more effort. They see distance and respond by becoming more available. They see uncertainty and respond by giving more. But giving more doesn't automatically create reciprocity. Sometimes it simply teaches another person that you'll carry the relationship for them. And you deserve better than that. You deserve to meet someone halfway, not 90%, not 100%, halfway. Now, I want to leave you with something that I think is much more important than any sign that proves a man is thinking about you. Your goal shouldn't be to become unforgettable to everyone. Your goal should be to become unforgettable to the person who is capable of loving you well. Because there will always be people who don't recognize your value. That's life. There will be people who don't choose you. There will be people who are attracted to someone else. There will be people who aren't ready. There will be people who simply don't feel the same way. And none of those things reduce your value. The right lesson isn't, how do I make everyone want me? It's, how do I become so secure in myself that I no longer need everyone to? That's freedom. And ironically, when you stop needing universal approval, you become much more magnetic. Not because you're manipulating anyone, because you're no longer performing, you're present, you're relaxed. You're curious, you have standards, you laugh, you express yourself, you say what you mean, you walk away when something isn't right, you stay when something is healthy, you don't chase, you don't run, you choose. And that is the energy I want you to take into every relationship. So yes, notice the signs, notice when he remembers, notice when he reaches out, notice when he creates opportunities, notice when he listens, notice when he follows through, notice when you naturally enter his thoughts and conversations, but don't become obsessed with proving that you're on his mind. The real question is whether you're in his life, because someone can think about you all day and still do nothing. Someone can miss you and still not be ready. Someone can desire you and still not know how to love you. What you want is not merely a place in someone's thoughts. You want a place in someone's choices. And choices are where love becomes real. So if he thinks about you beautiful, if he remembers you, enjoy it. If he reaches out, receive it. If he makes an effort, appreciate it. But keep your feet firmly planted in your own life. Keep your standards, keep your friendships, keep your ambitions, keep your sense of humor, keep your identity, keep becoming the woman you respect. Because the healthiest relationship isn't the one where you finally convince someone that you're worth choosing. It's the one where two people recognize each other's value and willingly choose each other again and again. And when you get there, you won't spend your nights asking, does he like me? You'll look at his actions and think, I know. Not because you manipulated him, not because you decoded some secret sign, not because you forced certainty, but because his behavior made his feelings clear. And that's the kind of love you should want. Not love you have to chase, not love you have to analyze. Not love you have to earn by becoming someone else. Love that meets you. Love that respects you. Love that chooses you. And most importantly, a relationship in which you never have to lose yourself just to keep someone else.